James Wiggins is saying it's game over. Why is that? Is it because Zillow has no
James.
power?
Go ask James.
Just think about it rationally, dude.
I mean, he's talking about. He could be.
Is it because Zillow has no power?
He could just.
Is it because Zillow has? Are you saying Zillow has no power?
I'm saying that there's one part of what Compass is trying to accomplish, and that appears made to go away. It's not like Compass is fucking going away. This is Industry Relations, a podcast at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective. Sponsored by Cotality. Stay tuned to learn more with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your host, the notorious Rob, and as always, my co-host, the fabulous Greg Robertson, everybody.
Hola, Rob.
Hola. We're going to go with the gentle, more subdued approach going forward.
Yes.
But for anyone tuning in this early, I guess, we are back to the normal scheduled programming.
Well, you know, the number of views just shot up in our last episode talking about music. So apparently there's other sources for music commentary on the interwebs. So.
I don't blame our audience at all. I'm just asking for them to, maybe don't blame us so hard because, I mean, there's only so much we could, talk about, conflict in the industry without something new happening. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, sorry and thanks for indulging us. I guess is the way I could put it. But
we should make a programming note also. We're going to be on vacation next week because of the July 4th, so we'll have 1 week of dead. But right. But we'll be right back on schedule.
Right. And that's supposed to be our live stream episode anyway.
Yeah,
so we'll just wish everybody a very happy birthday to America.
Yes.
Hope that you are out there doing your best to. I don't want to call it barbecue because that's wrong. Barbecue means smoke, grilling burgers and hot dogs and chicken and whatever, right? I recommend you try charcoal, because it tastes better. But anyway.
Okay. Wow.
So yeah, and as a result, I'm sitting again. I'm not standing because back to the normal. But look,
it was a good experiment, Rob. We tried.
No, it's not even an experiment. Fact of the matter is, we actually have something to talk about this week.
Yes.
Last week we really were
boy.
Oh my God, are we gonna just do no? At least there's something that happened this week that we can address. So without further ado, Mr. Robertson, if you would introduce the topic of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Compass filed another lawsuit. I mean, they're just a bit, I don't want to call it lawfare or anything, but I mean, they are now, full in litigation mode. The first one they did was Northwest MLS.
Yep.
So they were suing them, and I think there was a lot of criticism on the complaint that they filed on that, as far as it just seemed like a brochure for their 3-phase marketing program, right?
Yep.
But and then now they are now suing Zillow for the ZLAS, their
right.
listing policy, right? And
That's
again, you've made some commentary on it. I think the one word I got from you was meh.
Yeah.
On some of it, right?
Yeah.
But then you had on Substack, and then he also wrote something
a guest
for
host.
Inman,
Yes.
a guest host on Substack, and then he also wrote an opinion piece from
Greg Hague.
Yeah, Greg Hague,
who is a broker and an attorney. Right?
Yeah.
So and he wrote. Look, I didn't agree with his conclusion. I didn't agree with a lot of his stuff, but I thought, man, this is a really interesting take.
No, he
deserves to be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And he also wrote an opinion piece for Inman.
Mm-hmm.
And it went the way you would think it would go, even though he's not a Compass agent. But I mean,
right.
When you look at the Facebook comments, it was like Compass agent, Compass agent, Compass agent, Compass agent, right?
Right.
There was also an article about this in the New York Times. Deborah Kelman wrote another piece about it, and that's where I first read about it. And it's kind of funny because it's the first kind of I don't think it's maybe it's not the first, but it's one of the rare times I've actually done a comment on the New York Times.
Oh wow, okay.
And if you know that space, and I just kind of learned about it, is you have all the comments, and then you can kind of recommend a comment, right? And then they have 2 tabs. They have all the comments, and then they have the top recommended.
Right.
I think I'm number 3 on the recommended comments.
All
so
right.
I was very
what was
kind
your
of,
comment?
well, we'll probably get into it on
We'll
this
probably
episode.
get into it.
Right?
So let's just do it. What was your comment?
Well, I mean, I think it's better that you go down the road that because you do. I mean,
Sure.
I didn't read
All right,
the
so
whole
let's do
thing.
that.
I glanced
Yeah.
it, but you do a great job of catching out.
Yeah.
You know, you read the complaint.
Yeah.
And you had some commentary in your Substack, which I read, which I thought was, as usual, really good. Why don't you start with that, and then we can go into that.
Sure. So, like you said, I mean, I think my overall take was like meh, right? In that,
And that is on the merits of what they're
no,
saying, or
no, just on the drafting, right?
Right.
Because remember, I don't remember we talked about it, but I know I definitely wrote it when the Department of Justice filed. I want to say it was like their second something, right? And I remember just like gushing over the legal drafting. It's just there's a technique to it, right? Like a really well written legal brief, it sets forth the case, but it kind of builds, right? Like it builds to this like conclusion that's almost inescapable, right? And there was another lawsuit recently. It's slipping my mind right now.
no? But I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
When
But,
there's
like,
somebody that's gifted that's writing those things,
Yeah.
it's really hard to.
Yeah, like at the end of reading, you're like, oh my god, like of course they're guilty, and then you read the reply brief, right? And then you're like, oh no, I was totally wrong.
Yeah,
this guy
they're
is
guilty.
exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
You're like,
Judges
That's-
and everybody has it's a tough gig to
Yeah.
sort this shit out. Yeah.
yeah, and there's like that's to me what a great legal brief looks like.
Right.
When you read it, you go, I'm 100% convinced, and then you read the other side, go, I'm 100% convinced, and then this one I didn't get that. It didn't build to this like slum dunk conclusion. It just kind of, I think I'd called it meandered.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the problem with that is it's a little bit hard to know exactly like how meritorious the underlying claim is.
Yeah.
Right. When the writing doesn't like support that, right? When it doesn't drive you to this, oh damn, like they really
And you got to believe those guys have got enough money to hire the top-notch lawyers out there, right?
Yeah. And I know the law firm they hired. Obviously it's at the end of the thing, and it's a good law firm. Like
Right.
So I'm a little surprised, and it just I can't explain it, right? But it was the same thing with Northwest MLS. That was Ethan Glass. I'm like, I'm a little surprised that that your associates or whoever didn't. So it makes me wonder. Like, I wonder.
Well,
if,
I mean,
like,
when you're trying to put lipstick on a pig, I mean, you're putting lipstick on a pig. I mean, that's one way of looking at it.
I mean, I don't know that it is. That's my point. See, my point is that you're prejudiced against Compass, so you'll think that any complaint they make is bullshit, right? Greg Hague is prejudiced. I don't think he's prejudiced towards Compass, but maybe prejudiced against Zillow. I don't know. I can't speak for Greg.
I don't think I'm prejudiced Compass. I'm just.
You're goddamn prejudiced against Compass.
I'm prejudiced anybody who thinks that like it's a good idea to not give your listings wide exposure as quickly as possible.
We're gonna dig into that a little bit
Okay,
because
all right, okay.
I think you're going to be disappointed a little bit. But so I don't. That's the meh, right? In other words, like if I were to like actually be like a Compass advocate and like read this brief in the most favorable light, right? I could make out some merit, some meritorious claims. I still don't see what their angle is against EXP. I'll say that.
Right.
Like the conspiracy that they coordinated on a press release. I mean, it's like maybe there's something more, right? Maybe Discovery will show something more. I'm just saying, on its face, it feels like really that doesn't feel a lot like a conspiracy. The Redfin thing, is that a conspiracy, or like there's elements of it, and I pointed out the ones that I found were like really the most curious, right? So my conclusion, my takeaway from this is I don't really know, right, legally, and again, I'm not an antitrust law specialist or anything. I think if we see Zillow's answer to this, which they will file at some point, probably asking to dismiss all of this, like I suspect we're going to get a different angle, and maybe it's easier to evaluate the legal claims.
Right.
For me, it wasn't about the legal claims, it was about the facts that was released. Some of the behind-the-scenes maneuvering that went on, that is all kinds of interesting and all kinds of revealing. Right?
But really, though, I mean...
Okay, let's get into that.
Okay,
That's
all
me.
right.
What was your comment? What was your response? And I know you haven't read the complaint or anything.
No, I mean, I was going to comment on your. I mean, I think what you're about to say is, or we're getting into, was that there are meetings that Zillow had with Compass and regarding this, which I think is perfectly normal. They're a broker. They're going to do this thing that's going to affect basically probably I'm sure there's customers, Compass agents that are customers of Zillow, and try to work it out. And I think the same thing also was going on with Glenn Kelman over at Redfin. I mean, makes complete sense that, hey, we have a portal. We're going to adopt this policy, and maybe there's a way of working this out. Maybe there's not. Let's have a meeting before we do this, right? I mean, I think that's a perfectly normal business operation and function to do. When you're trying to kind of, get things. You're trying to make everybody happy, which means basically nobody's ever happy.
Let's dive right into it. Okay. Explain the Redfin conversation to me. Now, here's the assumption I'm going to make. Okay. The assumption I'm going to make is that the facts in this lawsuit is not all bullshit. Right? Well, because if you were to make up a story, the judge is going to fuck you up. Right? So I'm going to assume that the facts as laid out in this complaint actually happened. Right?
Give us the facts as you see them.
So this is, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically the allegations are that Glenn Kelman contacted Robert Reffkin within 45 minutes of the ZLAS announcement and said we should talk. And then they got their legal team together. So it's obviously a big conference call.
Is that a bad thing? Is that conspiratorial?
No.
What do you think?
No. I'm not saying conspiratorial. That's my thing. I'm not sure I see the conspiracy. What I do wonder though is, and this is what I wrote, and this is the key thing. Mr. Kelman asked Mr. Reffkin whether Mr. Reffkin had spoken to Zillow's CEO before Zillow's announcement, and implied that Mr. Kelman had spoken to Zillow before the announcement. They probably did because Zillow's going to talk to everybody, right? Okay. Mr. Kelman then pushed Compass to listen to Zillow, telling Mr. Reffkin that it is not good when Zillow and Compass are warring, and suggests that Zillow or Redfin would reward Compass with pre-marketing options. Mr. Kelman, all right, cool. What I wrote was, if this call actually happened the way it is described here, right? Because who knows? It could be on the other side of the story.
Well, of course, there's another side. There's their side, the other side, and then there's the truth, right?
Right. So I don't know. So I'm just going based on what's written here and assuming it's not total bullshit. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. It's maybe Redfin's going to file something that says no, that's not what actually happened. Here's the transcript of the conversation. Whatever. Okay. I'm just saying, going based on this, what I wrote was Redfin's going to have to offer some kind of explanation. Because fine, Redfin is a broker, way more than Zillow is, but Redfin's also a mortal competitor to Zillow on the portal front, or has been. And as you know, before Trulia got acquired by Zillow, those two were
yeah.
And it's perfectly understandable, right? I mean, I'm sure it's the same in vendor space, right?
Absolutely.
At an individual level, maybe Follow Up Boss and Lone Wolf, they all, the individual people involved, they get along, we go to Inman and have drinks together. But at a company level, you're rivals, right?
They're absolutely they're competitors.
Correct. And I'm just saying Redfin is a direct competitor to Zillow. Direct. Yep. Okay, on the portal side. Why would Redfin be it's not good when Zillow and Compass are warring? Because if Zillow and Compass are warring, it's good for Redfin, right? If Compass said, you know what, we're fuck Zillow, we're pulling all our listings from Zillow. Hey, Redfin, here's all our listings. Isn't that better for Redfin?
No, I mean, I think how I would interpret it would be, okay, if we just keep things status quo, I don't have to do anything. Right? You don't have to do anything. Decide whether or not we're going to follow this fucking policy of theirs, right? If you guys are not warring, if you guys we keep things status quo, we're all chill. Now that Zillow has done this and you guys are saying this, I've got to somehow pick a side here, right? Why don't you just resolve it with you guys, and therefore I don't have to make any decisions here, right? I mean, I think it's kind of
if Zillow loses, does Redfin benefit? They're direct competitors.
Zillow loses what?
Again, Zillow loses all of Compass's listings off of its website.
Okay.
Because of ZLAS.
Yeah.
Redfin has all of Compass's listings. Does that benefit Redfin or not?
It can benefit a little bit Redfin if they want to take those listings, right?
Right. That's my point.
But Kelman himself has always been a little bit of a peacenik, right? About the policies of Redfin, right? He's consumer focused, and he was originally out to kind of get agents out there. I mean, he's always had that kind of a liberal vibe to him, without saying whatever. So I think it was pretty obvious where he was going to stand on this thing. He's been, I think, very vocal in the fact that he's chosen different paths, even if he knew that they weren't going to make him money. He's got a record of that, right?
Dude, okay.
He had a record. He's definitely had a record for that.
Fine, but what makes it even more curious for me is that phone call happened like April 11th. Okay. Rocket announced its acquisition of Redfin on March 10th. The minute that Rocket and Redfin happened, you and I were on this podcast, and others have opined. The single biggest threat to Zillow now is Rocket Redfin. Right? It's not Homes. It's not Realtor.com. Right? Rocket Redfin is a real threat. Right? And then Rocket
absolutely.
I mean, Mr. Cooper. Everyone's been saying this. When they got together, right? When that acquisition happened, there's no doubt in my mind that all of the big senior execs, thought strategically. Hey, if we're Rocket, we buy Redfin, here's what we can do. It's not like they're ignorant of Zillow, right? They know Zillow exists. They know that Redfin is a distant third, right? And they're going, yeah, but you know what? With our money and our, whatever.
No, I mean,
we can take those guys out.
No, the competition is fierce. I mean, Rupert Murdoch owns a fucking portal in this space.
Sure.
Right? I mean, Andy Florence owns a fucking portal in this space.
Right.
I mean, these guys are going for it, right? This is a very healthy
I know.
competitive
That's what I'm saying.
market.
What I'm saying, though, is in that context, how does Kelman, again, assuming he said this, say it's not good when Zillow and Compass are warring? That's a direct competitor. Wouldn't it be? In other words, here's my take. I would understand this if Kelman came out and said, hey, man, it's not good that you guys are screwing consumers, okay? And we're all about consumers, and we think this lack of transparency sucks, so we're going to do the same thing that Zillow did. That I would understand, and that would be exactly like I said, completely in line with what we know of Glenn Kelman.
We don't know what they actually said. He could be taking some sentence at complete context, right? And maybe Kelman's just saying it that way because if he says it the other way that you say, now you're getting into some sort of like moral stance or anything that I would think a Kelman would kind of take, right? So, I mean, I just don't think that taking that one sentence out of it when we haven't heard any other side is really kind of pointing to some sort of grand thing.
Right. No, so my point is, it's not the legal. There's conspiracy between Zillow and Redfin. I'm not sure I see that. What I'm saying though is that if this phone call happened, Redfin's got to do some explaining, and the explanation could be, to your point, they just go, "That is not what I said," right? That's not. Here's the transcript. What I said is, it's not good when major companies are worrying, not Zillow, and hey, you know what, Robert? We're not down with this because we're all about consumer buyer transparency. So we're going to do the same thing that Zillow is doing, right? Maybe it's that. Like I said, I'm saying then that explanation has to be provided.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think if in any kind of in any space, right? You're selling fucking bananas or you're selling whatever. And the two bigger companies are going to start a war. Everybody else is going to be like, "Hey, man, this isn't good for any of us. What the hell are you doing here?" Right? I mean,
but it's good. My point is, it's really good for you.
Well, it could be disastrous. When you have a war, shit happens. You don't know, anything can happen, right? That's the whole thing about a war, right? I mean,
come on, dude. This is not a war like us bombing Iran. This is a intra-industry conflict. There's no reverberations at innocent people getting bombed to death, right? My point is this. It's to me, just put it in vendor terms, okay? You're the third place CRM company. Mm-hmm. The first place CRM company, I don't know what that is. Whoever it is, right? And anywhere are going at it with each other. You're telling me I'm the third place CRM company. I go to anywhere, it's not good when you're fighting with the first place CRM company. That does not make any sense to me.
Okay.
The one that would make sense is, awesome, those guys are scum. You should buy us instead, right? You should work with us instead. That's what makes sense. So
Yeah, I can't. I mean, to me, when there's something battling, especially the top guys, there's second order consequences, third order consequences that I don't know about, right? That I'm not whatever. That anything that's going to happen there are going to have outcomes that could be good for me, but also as a business person, maybe it's going to be bad for me. I don't know. I mean,
okay,
I'd rather have a little bit more normalcy than more.
The normalcy meant that you're number 3 and not catching up.
If you can execute correctly.
Right. The normalcy meant that you have to sell your company.
Or they could suck all the oxygen out of the room and nobody ever fucking pays attention to me because they think there's only two clear choices in the universe.
Dude, normalcy meant that we got our asses kicked so much I had to sell the company. Right? That's normalcy. Why would you want that? Why would you defend that? So, like I said.
Yeah. I just don't know. I see anything that there's a there, but
I'm not. Look, like I said, I'm not saying this means there's a conspiracy.
Well, I mean, even your premise of like that's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread for that number 3 player. I mean, I just don't know. It's just something else there that could have good consequences, but I don't think you could say that it's not going to have bad consequences either.
Dude, I don't know if you're arguing just to argue or if you're just. I mean, you advise vendors right now.
Right.
Right. You're telling me that the largest competitor and the largest potential buyer start having disagreements. You're going to advise that CEO to go, hey, man, you should stop fighting. That doesn't make any sense. Your competitors go, no.
Yeah,
you say, that guy's scum. You should buy me.
Yeah, I guess it is hard for me to suspend disbelief to like just go with your premise of that's exactly what was said, knowing the players involved here, where I think their actual head was at.
Sure.
I think that's where I'm having trouble with.
Like I said, all I said with Redfin was they need to explain this because it doesn't make sense given what we know about Redfin, Rocket, Zillow, the shape of the grand competition that's coming up, right? It didn't make sense to me, so I'm just saying it just needs to be explained, right?
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Cotality. CoreLogic is now Cotality. Same trusted technology and data, just with a new name that reflects their mission to unify property professionals, strengthen industry relationships, and drive innovation globally. Cotality powers tools you already know and love, like Matrix, the gold standard for MLS systems. There's One Home for agents who want to give their clients a more personalized collaboration experience. MLS Touch keeps you connected to the MLS no matter where you are. Realist gives you the insights to stand out as the local expert and tools to fill your funnel with high-value leads. The new One Homeowner platform keeps you top of mind and delivers value long after the deal is done. Learn more at Cotality.com, and if your MLS is powered by Cotality, don't miss Camp Cotality for MLS App and Leadership this June. It's the perfect place to connect, learn, and see what's next. Our thanks to Cotality for sponsoring Industry Relations.
The Zillow thing, though, is a whole other kettle of fish. So let's get your take on the Zillow conversation.
Let's hear what your.
Basically, there was an in-person meeting, right? Claiming to be April 1, right? And in-person meeting with all the bigwigs, everybody. Lloyd Frank, Jeremy Waxman, who's the CEO, Errol Samuelson, Chief Industry Officer Jun Chu, COO, Jeremy Hoffman, CFO, Brad Owens, General Counsel. I mean, that is literally the...
Lloyd Frank being there, I mean, Jesus. I mean, that's...
right?
Smart. I mean, the one that we've always heard is the freaking savant, freaking smart dude, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't get, there's no one above that. Like, that is the power, that is the brain, that is the leadership of Zillow.
Well, I mean,
right?
Barton could have been there, but, whatever.
I think Barton stepped back. I think because Lloyd's title now is co-executive chairman, co-founder, and president, right? So, anyway, like, that is, you can't get, that is the leadership. They meet with, supposedly, Reffkin and his team, right? And I'm sure Reffkin had his, entourage with him.
Okay, so just there, is that a weird thing to happen?
No, that is not the weird thing.
All right, okay.
And I'm like, of course you would do that, right?
Okay,
because nobody wants to go to war, like if you could, right? But what is the facts recited are, during the meeting, Mr. Waxman and Mr. Hoffman warned Compass multiple times that Zillow, quote, will not allow Compass to have listings that are not on Zillow, unquote. Okay. And it's that. Reffkin talks about what other brokers.
Let's go back to that sentence. That sentence, in a way, is like already. Do they have a transcriber there? Was there recorded? Because I mean, if you break apart that sentence, I mean, there's so many problems with that, of the way that can be interpreted, right? So it's just a weird sentence, isn't it?
I don't know if it is. Like,
well,
to your
say
point,
the sentence again.
Zillow, quote, will not allow Compass to have listings that are not on Zillow, unquote.
Not have listings that are not on Zillow. I mean, it's like what do they call that? A circular argument or something, right?
No, it's not. So
they will not allow Compass to have listings that are not on Zillow.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
It's a weird sentence to me, but go ahead.
Okay. So he talks about, Douglas Elliman, Corcoran, Sotheby's, blah, 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 who also have private listings. Mr. Hoffman repeated, quote, we will not allow that to happen, unquote. Now, to your point, we don't have a transcript. There's no recording, right? We only have the words of whoever was at this meeting saying to their lawyer, who then put it into this document, okay? So it's entirely possible none of those words are spoken.
Right.
Right? And that's what we need to find out from the answer, and maybe a trial, right? Maybe a deposition, right? Where you bring in these executives like, did you use these words? Like, no, that is not what I said. Here's proof, here's a transcript.
Was there anything in right. the agreement or the complaint that had documents of like an email thread, whatever? So this is all just
kind of hearsay.
It's all hearsay. I mean,
again, it's not hearsay because it is a witness saying that, but it's one-sided recitation of facts. Which is why I said, look,
it's not really a strong. I mean, typically with these kind of complaints, the well-written ones, they have shit to back it up, right?
Right.
Beyond just
right.
Well, he said that. It's really is a he said she said kind of thing.
At this point, it really is. So I'm conceding all that, which is why I'm like, from a legal standpoint, it's like, meh, okay.
Yeah.
But I'm saying this is not a legal thing anymore.
Okay.
My point is this. So can we just assume that this is true? Let's stop questioning.
Okay. All right.
We don't have, we've already conceded that. We've already conceded, right? We don't know if this is in fact, right? But if it is true, there's that. And then Reffkin points to MRED. It's like, the largest private listing network is not Compass, it's MRED. Okay? Mr. Hoffman then reiterated, quote, we will no longer allow that to happen, unquote. And then yada, yada. So those three things I just saw as like, wow, that's really interesting. And that's the piece that I think is impactful. And then what we get word is Zillow executives, and this is from the document, Zillow executives also tried to dangle a carrot for Compass before resorting to the Zillow ban stick, offering Compass proposed financial upside if it abandoned its three-phase marketing strategy by agreeing to stop or slow its pre-marketing strategies. Okay. It's understandable, but that's new. It's understandable, that's new. And then there's like we should have weekly.
Yeah, they don't want this situation. Can we?
Right.
Can we put something in this hand to make sure this hand doesn't happen? Right.
Here's the thing. I mean, when I wrote about ZLAS and I criticized ZLAS, one of the things I pointed out was in the terms of ZLAS, it specifically talks about a direct fee from the broker. Right. Remember we had that conversation.
Yeah.
So when we hear that Zillow proposed, like, here's a bunch of goodies that we can throw your way, right? Is there any way that it did not include, you could just send a fee to us?
I don't know. They've abandoned. I always thought that was curious. I think we talked about it because they famously stopped taking broker feeds because the data quality sucked. Right. I mean, that's why they went to getting from brokers from the MLS because of the data quality greatly improved. So this would be a backtrack to that. Maybe they would have a bit more because the Compass is, more tech wise that would be better. I don't. Who knows, right? But I mean,
who knows?
I'm sure they would try to figure out a way of like getting it from the MLS. But who knows?
But here's the thing. Then going back to the actual words, right? And the sentence that you were taking issue with, will not allow Compass to have listings that are not on Zillow. Okay. It's not will not allow to have Compass to have listings that are not on the MLS. Okay. So combining the ZLAS saying we'll take a direct feed, these words that's saying that are not on Zillow, not on MLS, right? I'm suggesting, and then the thing about MRED, which is an MLS, Zillow will no longer allow that to happen. There is a clear divide between Zillow and the MLS.
In that case.
In that case, in this
the
case.
MRED case.
Okay, well, if MRED is an MLS, you know what I mean? Like.
Well, I mean, again, now
So
that
my point is
commingling
this.
has been blown up,
Sure. My point
yeah,
simply, Greg,
you can do a broker feed. I mean, you can do any kind of thing. I mean, you can upload or whatever. I mean, it's not automatic or anything.
Greg,
but
my point is this. I feel like you're really happy with ZLAS and you're happy with Zillow because you think they're defending the MLS.
No.
And when it's said and done, I think you're a partisan for the MLS.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So to the extent that Zillow is a friend to the MLS, you're pro-Zillow. If Zillow turned against the MLS, I think you'll be anti-Zillow. I think that's a fair statement.
You think it's a fair statement? Okay.
I think. Is it a fair statement?
I don't think so.
You would not turn against Zillow if they said, fuck the MLS, we're going to...
I think I've been on record for doing that. Fucking Zillow sued an MLS, right? I mean, what are you talking about?
But you were like, good for you, Zillow? Like, would you still be a Zillow partisan? Would you still think that Zillow's doing the right thing if they said, fuck the MLS, we're just going to destroy them?
Well, I mean, I'd have to understand the reason, right? I mean, there might be a good reason I don't know about.
Yeah. But so I'm saying...
I mean, to me, it's hard for me to... Well, the bigger thing, too, also, is this notion of a monopoly, which is what they're saying, which is, to me, ludicrous, right?
How's it ludicrous? How's Zillow not a monopoly?
We just spent the first, part of this podcast talking about mortal competition and mortal competitors and all the players in here. I mean, you have Rocket being a huge competitor, going to be the biggest thing against those guys.
This is such nonsense, such horseshit. So, like, when James Dwiggins, when ZLAS was announced, right? James Dwiggins, our friend, right, posts on LinkedIn and all over social media, game over. Right? How is it game over?
For the Rocket Redfin?
No, it was when Zillow announced ZLAS. Right.
Game over for Compass.
Right.
As far as game over for Compass for not being able to for executing their three-phase marketing strategy.
Correct.
Okay, so
how is that possible if Zillow is just one of many? There's no monopoly power. They're just
still
one
put
of
them
many
on fucking
portals.
homes.com, I assume, right?
I understand
it's
that.
It's not game over for other portals, right? I mean, or their own site or
I'm just pointing out Dwiggins and everyone else is like, this is game over for Compass because Zillow has so much power. Zillow effectively has monopoly power.
Everybody can have some power. You can still compete, right?
Greg,
I mean, this is not like there's nobody else out here. It's not like there's other companies
Greg,
spending $1 billion fucking dollars.
I understand,
and
yet James Dwiggins is saying it's game over. Why is that? Is it because Zillow has no
James.
power?
Go ask James.
Just think about it rationally, dude.
He's talking about. He could be.
Is it because Zillow has no power?
He could. Just
is it because Zillow has? Are you saying Zillow has no power?
I'm saying that there's one part of what Compass is trying to accomplish, and that appears made to go away. It's not like Compass is fucking going away.
So you're saying
94% of the fucking listings go to the fucking MLS anyway.
But you're saying because
what the fuck they're arguing about?
Because
it's ridiculous.
Because of that going away, it's game over for Compass, and that means Zillow has no power.
Maybe it's game over for the three-page marketing strategy,
right.
Which it's going to be fucking game over anyway when this market fucking shifts. This is so stupid.
You're so wrong about that, but that's beside the point. My point is you can't say Zillow's not a monopoly and then also say therefore the third leg of Compass marketing is dead.
Obviously they've executed well. They have a market dominance now, but it hasn't stopped from people from competing, and you just said there's a huge threat going on the horizon.
This is such
with Rocket and
shit.
Redfin, right? I mean,
let me ask you something. Is Google a monopoly?
Yeah, I think so.
How? There's Bing.
Yeah,
there's DuckDuckGo.
Sure.
So how is Zillow not a monopoly?
I don't think it has thriving competitors like we do in the portal space.
How is it thriving?
DuckDuckGo really making a fucking effort?
They're ahead by like orders of magnitude.
Yeah, and what's happening now? I mean, what's happening now is they couldn't be because AI. Everybody's going to go to fucking ChatGPT and get the answers and
fine.
whatever. I mean, this is a market. People compete.
Greg, by that token, Google's
static.
not a monopoly, right? Then there is no monopoly. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Well, again, it's these things are not like set in stone forever. Otherwise, I'd be fucking shopping at Sears for Christ's sake.
Fine, they may not be a monopoly in the future. Can you concede they're a monopoly right now?
No,
they're not a monopoly right now.
I don't think so.
Even though they could destroy a company's marketing strategy by their own
have they destroyed it?
You just said so.
What the fuck?
You just said.
No, you said that James Dwiggin said that. No. You said that James Dwiggin.
Okay.
Let me ask you a fucking question.
Yeah.
Do they still have a 3-phase marketing plan? Yes.
Of course.
Okay. Well, they haven't been destroyed then.
Except that they filed a lawsuit essentially saying if Zillow's allowed to do this.
That's how it fucking works, man.
If Zillow's allowed to do this, this will destroy our plan.
No, you file a lawsuit. Let's see what happens.
That's called a monopoly.
It's not a monopoly.
That's called a monopoly. I don't know what other definition of monopoly you're working with. What's a monopoly then, Greg? What's a monopoly?
I mean, there's several types of monopolies. I mean,
fine. What's
I'd
a monopoly?
To ask Matt Consalvo about this. He would know the 9 different types of monopolies you can have. Some monopolies you can the government lets you have, right? Like utilities or whatever else. I don't know. I mean, I'm not that type of expert.
Greg, my point is your logic is really fucking flawed here. Okay, electric utilities monopoly. Why is electric utility monopoly? I could get solar panels.
Sure.
Is the electric utility still a monopoly?
I don't know what point you're trying to make.
My point is monopoly is about having so much power that you cannot go against them. Right? Electric utility is a monopoly, even though I could get solar panels. Okay? Water utility is a monopoly, even though I could dig a well.
Okay, Professor. I mean,
yeah,
keep going.
Zillow is a monopoly. Now, here's the thing. Is it an illegal monopoly? That's a different story. Right? And that's one of the things I point out in my write-up. Like, we can't ignore that Zillow has monopoly power. Of course they do. The issue is it illegal? Okay? That's what Compass is claiming. I'm like, I'm kind of mad about that one. Right?
Right.
Like, Google is a monopoly. Is it an illegal monopoly? Maybe, right? Like, if you're really fucking great at what you do and you have 87, 90% market share, like, there's, and this is legally as well, that's like, good on you, right? Like, you did the right things. You executed. You provided something that people want, and now you have 90% market share.
Right.
You're allowed to have 90% market share, okay? So, but what I'm saying is let's not pretend they don't have it. Let's not pretend they're not a monopoly. They are. The question is whether they're an illegal monopoly abusing their power. That's the question, right? But that's on the legal side. Okay. I'm much more interested in the, if you will, the PR side. So here's what I wrote based on this conversation, okay? If I'm a large brokerage leader, say I'm the real brokerage, okay? Say I'm United Real Estate.
Okay.
Okay. Shouldn't I launch a private listing network right now?
Well, I mean, what you're going to get is, and I wrote a post about this. It's like, at his at the annual meeting, he and again, Reffkin is a master communicator, right? He showed, well, we're going to show this billboard, right? Like you can see it before it goes on Zillow, right? Or these listings aren't on Zillow. Well, what you're going to get is if we just continue down this road, Real's going to have a thing. Everybody's going to have those kind of things.
Yeah. No, that's
and we're just going to end up his kind of thing where we're going to have more the other listings on our site. I mean, it's just going to be the competitive advantage you think you're going to have there is just going to go up in smoke.
Greg, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if I'm, the United Real Estate, shouldn't I launch a private listing network just to hear what Zillow's going to offer me? Zillow offered Compass financial incentives, right?
Yeah, I don't. Maybe something like United. Maybe because what is it? I forget what Compass is. But it's not by number of transactions. It's by volume. They're number one.
It's by volume,
right?
but right.
Right.
EXP is number one by size.
If you're a bigger brokerage,
right?
Why not? Yeah.
I'm not even right. So I'm not even saying.
Sure.
I'm not even saying like you should launch a private listing network and then pursue. I'm saying if it is true that Zillow offered Compass a basket of goodies.
Well,
right?
again, if you know what that is, we don't know, and it's all hearsay or whatever you want to call
Sure.
it. Right?
But again, we just have to go with whatever is said here is true
Yeah.
for now until we hear otherwise. Okay.
Right.
I'm just pointing out, isn't it just logical to say, hey, I should do that same so that I could hear what Zillow's going to offer me?
Sure.
That's just basic
Sure.
business logic.
Sure.
That feels right to me. Okay.
Sure.
The second thing that I think about is, and this is where I wanted to really get to, right, is if it is true that Zillow executive, like that group of powerful people, said, we will not allow that, and applied it to MRED, how do you think Rebecca and that group is going to perceive that? How do you think the MLS community would perceive this notion of we will not allow that?
Right. So I think there'd be two issues there, right?
Okay.
So number one is, they are Zillow is a participant in that MLS.
That's right.
So they have to follow the rules of the MLS.
That's right.
Right. So they have two things there, is that if the rules of the MLS allow this private listing network to have there, right, and they're a participant in that MLS, they may be bound by their participation agreement with MRED to follow that lead, right? So they might have a problem there, right? But that doesn't mean you could take that to every MLS out there, because unfortunately, and fortunately sometimes, every MLS is fucking different, right? So I think that's how they are going to have to handle that case.
I'm asking a slightly different question, I think. Because you're still going based on it depends on what the rules of that MLS and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean, they signed a participation agreement,
Right.
so they've got to...
I'm talking about feelings, ego, control. Here's my view, okay? And again, you and I both know MLS executives. You and I both know MLS boards of directors. We've spent our career working with those people, right?
Yeah.
Do any of them strike you as the kind of people who enjoy someone else allowing or not allowing them? Because they don't strike me that way at all. At all.
That's a good observation, but let me say this, right? I mean, and this goes back to the kind of one of the first podcasts we talked about this, is that in a vacuum, it gets filled by something, right?
Sure.
And there has been leadership from NAR in the past with the policies and this and that and that and this, that is like they've had to listen to NAR, who's been the daddy in the situation for a long time, to kind of handle these kind of disputes, right?
Yeah.
And lately, because of lawsuits, they've been very trigger shy, very shy about doing anything new because of these lawsuits. They're very... So what happens there? As the analogy I gave you before, it's like all the kids are fighting in the other room, dad's in the other room trying to read his newspaper, and after, he's just like, I can't take any more of this shit. And he goes in there with the belt and says, you to your room, you to go to your room, you to go to... Somebody had to step in here and be dad. And that's been Zillow. Do they like it? Probably not. But NAR isn't giving any leadership because they're fucking gun shy. So, I mean, what else is going to happen here, right? Now, hopefully what happens is they're probably going to have to go inward. I mean, this is what we've heard, that CMLS is like, maybe they're going to be becoming more of their policy things, but they hadn't been able to do that because of their association with the association, right? But yeah, I mean, it's not probably ideal, but that's what we have here, man.
Of course, but what I'm saying is CMLS did not start 3 years ago. CMLS started like 20 years ago, right? CMLS was already in place like when I entered the industry.
Well, they're like 50 years. I mean, if you go back
they've
to
been
Northwest
around
Council,
a long fucking time.
Yeah.
My introduction to CMLS was through David Sharon, right? And what I remember distinctly, like 10 years ago, was the MLS's feeling like NAR should not be telling us what to do.
Yeah, no, they've always felt that way. Absolutely.
They've
There's always been
always
tension.
felt that way.
Yeah.
Right.
But they couldn't do it for
Right,
various
all the-
reasons
right,
we've
all the
talked
reasons-
about,
right.
which are all basically
Right.
we've all discovered are false. but
100%.
still, yeah.
100%. My point is that the MLS industry, the MLS leaders, and the MLS boards of directors that I've worked with that I know are not the type of people who enjoy being told what they are and are not allowed to do.
Right.
They're the type of people who enjoy telling other people what those other people are allowed and not allowed to do.
An MLS is basically rules, right? That's
Right.
what it is. That's what an MLS is.
I think that is incredibly important. In other words, however this lawsuit goes, right? Like I said, I'm making no judgment on the quality of the claims here, legal claims here. My point is, if those communications are true, if Zillow is taking the stance that we are not going to allow MRED to continue doing that, that is not going to be welcome in the boardroom.
Yeah, and of course, right? So you got to think
not
of this.
Welcome. Right.
This doesn't happen in like some sort of like time machine, right? I mean, so you have the way it was before with the relationship with NAR and MLSs, right? Which was, again, nobody likes to be told what to do, right?
Right.
Then you have the second thing is this lawsuit hits, right? And like, oh shit, now we have to do this thing. Again, from the MLS standpoint, we put all our trust in freaking NAR to take care of this. They dropped the fucking ball.
That's right.
Right? Which I think a lot of us kind of think that,
That's right?
And now it's like, okay, there's this netherworld of we have to figure this out. Godspeed, they said. Godspeed.
Right. That's
fucking
right.
go figure this out, right?
That's right.
Okay, well,
That's
let's
right.
figure this out. We do this.
Right.
And then these other things start to happen, this innovation with, the business models that happen. And they're like, okay, well, goddamn, I mean, I guess, NAR, what do we do? Hey, man, fucking,
We said
like, okay, all right, well, I guess we'll try. They have nothing in place to do that. Zillow steps in, fuck it, this is what we're doing, right? And like, oh shit, okay, well, I guess so.
Right.
And then MLSs are going to retreat right now. They're going to figure things out, and when the time comes, I mean, this is not stuff that can happen overnight. They're going to come back and go, okay, you know what? I appreciate what you're trying to do, Zillow. NAR, you guys are, I understand where you're coming from. You don't want the thing. Okay, here's what we're going to do, right? This is a natural thing that's happening, right? I don't think
Sure.
I think this is all understandable if we look at like the grand picture and the timeline we're in.
I kind of agree, but I kind of disagree in the following sense. So here's what I mean. I think the MLSs viewed Zillow as kind of their cat's paw. They're like, Zillow's very powerful, but whatever. But they're a vendor and they're a participant, right? NAR, Zillow could not get, and we could not get NAR to change its policy, right? Because if you think about it, NAR's delayed marketing thing, right? It was like a total loss for Zillow. Right? That is like the opposite of what Zillow wanted to see happen. Zillow said, fuck it, we can't do this. For Zillow's own reasons, which, by the way, I completely understand. Like,
Zillow, they've always been consumers are our North Star. Right. This goes very much in line with their thing, right? Yeah,
sure. But really, it's about we need to generate buyer leads to business.
So again, yeah.
100%.
If anybody, I think Barrero said this in a post. Anybody that tells you it's for the best consumer, they're doing it because it's all horseshit. Yeah,
it's all horseshit.
These people are just working their business model.
And I'm saying, if I were Zillow, I'd be doing the exact same thing too. So I understand where they're coming from. My point is, I think the MLS is regarded Zillow as like a useful mercenary, like a tool for them to use.
For now, yeah.
Right? And now this puts a slightly different, not slightly, like a very different.
And the pendulum will swing back a little bit in due time.
My point is this. My point is, you called it like daddy's home, like he's stepping in now with the belt, right? My point is that the MLSs never liked having a daddy in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's not little kids. It's a bunch of 22-year-olds living in the parents' basement, resenting the living shit out of it, and going, I want to be independent. And they've been saying that for 10 years. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, finally the daddy, the NAR, is crumbling because of the lawsuit. And now they're talking like, hey, we should do it our own way, whether that's CMLS or internal, whatever. And then here comes Zillow, like, we're not.
Well, they weren't prepared. They're not prepared. I mean,
they're not.
They're
Agreed.
just discovering that basically NAR is a weak hand, right?
Yes, agreed.
They're not going to be that person. So now they have to adjust.
My point is that they weren't ever depending on it. They weren't like, we want NAR there to be our daddy. And now that NAR is proven to be weak, we want Zillow to be our daddy. That's my point. My point is they were like, we don't want NAR as our daddy. We wanted to control our own shit. Here comes Zillow saying, we're not going to allow that. I don't see MLSs going, we're cool with that. Great, you're a good daddy. I don't see that at all, man.
Well, I think they right now they're strange bedfellows for sure, but it's like your enemy, my friend is who has the same enemy as mine, as me, right? They're going to do that. They're going to play that as best they can until they get their shit together.
That's right.
And I know they're actively working on, stuff where they can be writing their own policies, coming from a standpoint of being independent, of that association with NAR and or a vendor participant, right? So it's just going to take a little bit of. These are complicated issues.
It is,
and it's going to take some time.
It is. My essential point with this, and why I'm saying this complaint is important. Okay, again, it's not for the legal. Right? I have no opinion on that because the way that this was drafted. Plus, we haven't heard from Zillow. Reason why I'm saying this is important is. This now has a feel, to your point, much more like the U.S. and the Soviet Union becoming allies to defeat, Germany, right? Where both sides knew the minute that Germany is defeated, we're going to be enemies, right? Both sides knew. This is not France and Great Britain getting together. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very weird thing.
Yeah,
the conflict between Zillow and the MLS I think, is coming, and it's precisely because Zillow said they came forward and took this role. As long as Zillow's like, we're a vendor, we're a portal, we take fees from you, we're a brokerage participant, right? As long as they were in that box, the MLSs were like, whatever, right? Like they're just an internet portal. And I've said this from the minute that Zillow did ZLAS. Now you're in the policy game, right? And now you are, to your point, that you're the daddy who took off the belt. The way that they would then relate to the MLS becomes really, really important. And this stance of we're not going to allow you to do that. Like, oh no, the MLS are going to rebel. They are not going to take that. That's my read. That's my take based on the MLS execs.
I think in this case they are because it aligns with what they want to do. But if they start extending that to other things that they don't like, they're not going to do that. We got to wrap up here pretty soon. But I'll start this. I'll end this thing the way I started. Right. So what I worry about is that we all have this kind of fucking palace intrigue. This is Cole from Tuesday always says that, right? There's so much of this fucking palace intrigue that we're involved in, and we're the Zillow and all this kind of.
It's like junior high school. It's unbelievable.
If you go to the New York Times and you read those comments, right? Consumers are pissed, right? They're pissed at realtors making too much money. They're pissed at brokerages hiding listings, right? All this stuff is going on, and underneath this all, if we don't pay attention, right, it's all going to go up in smoke because it's like, Barrero did that talk at CMLS where he talked about, okay, think about the headlines that are going to be in the the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. Do you want a headline that says, the industry is hiding listings now? Is that what you're really hoping for? I mean, it just depends on the public perception of this stuff is not a good look for anybody. There's a lot. I mean, you can tell who the Compass agents are on the comments, but the most of them are like, it's not a good. This stuff is not good for the industry as a whole, right? And nobody's coming out of this stuff looking good, right? Compass ain't looking good. Zillow's not looking good. Your average agent isn't looking good. The MLS is not looking good, right? So we need to figure this shit out before we lose any sort of like authority or trusted advice or whatever you want to call it, because it's getting pretty bad out there. I mean, especially again, I would go to the Times and read some of those comments.
Was that your comment? Like, we need to fix this because consumers hate us? Like, what was your comment?
No, my comment was basically what I've been saying here, that I think, again, I don't know, when you say monopoly, right, I'm thinking, is it illegal or not? So maybe I'm thinking, maybe it's a monopoly, but it's not illegal or whatever. I was just arguing that it just boggles my mind that it's like, no, we're not going to show it to as many people as possible. That's your fucking plan? I mean, and again, the MLS allows you to do that right now, and you're making a big fucking deal about this, and that's going to change. So it's just the bizarreness of that being a strategy, the fronting that everybody's doing, the Zillows, the fucking MLS, and everybody else, and that there's not competition out there, right? I mean, there is competition out there. I mean, it's just that you can go read it, but that's basically it.
All right. Well, since we have to wrap, let's try and wrap because I don't want to pick another fight with you. We gotta wrap.
I think our listeners would love that, but yeah.
Again, because we have to wrap. I mean, if we want to do a Joe Rogan, keep going. Like I'm game. But so look, what can we say in terms of wrap up? My take on things just right now is it's hard for me to judge the legal sort of validity here. Right. Partially because I don't think the complaint was written, well enough to kind of drive me to that conclusion. And the other part, honestly, is because I haven't seen the answer from Zillow. Right. What I found so interesting, though, were these two stories, the phone call and the meeting, and the words that were used. Now, to be fair, as we have said repeatedly, we don't know. Okay. We don't know. So until we get some real truth about what was actually said, right? I can only go based on this, which is why everything is if then. If Zillow said that, then this. If Redfin said that, then this. It's one of those things. Okay. And I'm not saying like Compass is right or Zillow is wrong or it's nothing like that. What I'm thinking about though are the impact on the industry, on the people who are not involved in the lawsuit, right? The brokers that are out there, okay, who are not in this lawsuit, the MLSs who are not in this lawsuit. And I'm looking at these things going, like I said, I think there's some real implications that flow out of it directly. Like if I really mean this. If I'm a broker of any size, I set up a private listing network right now. I announce it so that I could call Zillow. What you got for me, right?
Yeah, well, you'd have to be of any size. Zillow, if you're one person operation, they're going to say nothing. Buy, click.
Yeah, any size meaning like at least a regionally important player, right?
Not any size then.
Yeah, so of sufficient size. Let's say in the $2 billion club, I think about setting a private listing network, right? Just to see like what's Zillow going to offer me, right? Or maybe just call them in advance. Hey Zillow, what are you going to offer me so I don't set up a private listing network, right? Like that seems like an obvious outcome from this, right? And that's what I look at. MLS is like, if they haven't already done so, I imagine they're calling Zillow and be like, can you tell me a little bit more about will not allow? Right? Like,
well, I think they already did. It's called ZLAS, right? I mean,
no, like the actual words when you say we are not going to allow the MLS to do this.
Let's wait till Zillow comes with
Correct.
What they say. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is even before that, I imagine that those CEOs are calling Zillow and going, tell me a little bit more of this, right? And then maybe Zillow says that we never said that. Like he's taking words out of context. I don't know.
Or we were referring to the ZLAS, right?
Or whatever it is, right? Yeah. I don't know, but I'm saying the importance of this complaint is the behind the scenes stories, because a lot of times for the rest of us who are not in the lawsuit, that's what we get out of these filings. Like the NAR DOJ lawsuit, right? Like from that, we learned the actual story of the back and forth that went on between NAR and the Department of Justice, right? That's what we get out of it, and that's really what the interesting thing about it. That's where it is. Now, are we going to revisit this when Zillow files its answer? Probably, right? If the lawsuit gets dismissed or it goes on or whatever, like, yeah, we'll revisit this because these are two very large institutions in our industry. Zillow certainly has monopoly power. Compass is the largest broker by volume. Like, they're at mortal combat right now. We're commentators, we're like, of course we're going to talk about it further. But at this stage with just one complaint, though, that's my takeaways. That's all, right? So let's leave it there. Your bigger picture, like the industry and the consumers hate realtors, like maybe we'll do that next week.
Yeah, and if I could offer some advice to Mr. Reffkin, I hope he has something beyond the 3-phase marketing program because fucking winter's coming, man.
Okay, we're going to take that up because I got news for you. Private buyers love private listings. Private listings began in buyers market.
Oh, yeah, no. If I'm a buyer, why would I want them to expose a listing to as many people as possible? Yeah, I won't get a good deal.
Then here's the thing. The winner is not coming unless you're EXP. Because you're going to have to start a private listing now when we get to a buyer's market. But that'll be the topic for next week.
Okay, I like that.
All right. All right, thanks, everybody. We got to go. Thanks for hanging with us. All right, bye.